glad you guys got a chance to join me. So let's start with you guys introducing yourselves. Let the audience know who you are, where you're located, and how can they find you. And then we're going to jump into this topic of self-love. So Camille, we'll start with you.
Sure. Thanks for that intro. I'm Camille. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist here in the Los Angeles area. I am focusing on professional Black women as part of my specialty. So it's really awesome to teach women on how to communicate better, have more assertiveness skills, and be able to really just be the best version of themselves in such a difficult time, for right now. I could be found at Camille at diversifiedtherapy.com. Everything right now is virtual, but I will be seeing clients in the office soon here in the Los Angeles area.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, Natasha, it's on you.
Yes, so I'm Dr. Natasha Goodman. I am a psychotherapist based in Georgia. So I'm able to see all clients in Georgia virtually. I do focus on helping women of color build their self-esteem, work through transitions, whether it be career or starting their own businesses, working through building better relationships. So this topic is definitely something that is constantly talked about among my clients. So,
yeah, I think it's a good topic, especially with it being February. And I think this is what the month of love, we'll just say. But we're going to hop into it. I think that the term self-love is kind of thrown around a lot, right? And I think sometimes people might not understand or get a little bit confused about what does it mean to self-love or to love myself. So let's start with that. Like, what is self-love? Like, when you're talking to your clients, like, if they ask you that question, what is self-love? Like, what are you telling them?
Well, for me, I would say telling my clients that self-love is really accepting yourself fully as you are, whether it's what you look like, how you act, maybe even how you think. If you feel like you're negative, you have to accept it first. So, being able to just fully accept how you are so you can move forward and make improvements if needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think since you did define what it is, I might want to go to the opposite end of really what is not self-love, right? And so kind of talking about going into doing reckless behavior or things that are making kind of excuses for ourselves to overindulge, right? I think there's been such a market for self-care, self-love, and all of those things. And sometimes it gets blurred with all the marketing and all of that stuff, but really just trying to understand that it's being attuned with what your needs are and giving it to yourself and noticing that awareness and making sure that you're following through with that. So that what I think is really self-love, and it could mean so many different things it's really different for everybody.
That's true. And I'm glad you brought that up because, like you said, I think sometimes that I see a lot of my clients they like to compare themselves like, well, she's doing this or she's doing that. And I have to always remind them, like, it's really about you. You define this. Like, what do you need for yourself? And how does caring for yourself look? It doesn't have to be a full day of, and I feel like it's meshing in with self-care, but a full day of pampering where you go and spend a lot of money on getting your hair done or nails and things like that. That's awesome. But is that what you need for yourself? If not, what does that look like? And so I had the question of, does working out consider is a part of self-love? Is that something that you can call yourself doing self-love, practicing?
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and answer that? I saw you and I was like, are you going to go? You can go ahead. I'll go after you.
So, yes, so exercising would be considered self-love. It is kind of like Camille was saying, everybody is different. So if your goal is to lose weight, or if you feel like you're in an unhealthy place, exercising, eating healthy, those are self-love because you are caring for yourself. And those are the things that you need at that moment.
Right.
Yeah, and I do want to echo that it is a version of self-love. I think one of the easiest ways to really kind of think about what self-love is just, I tell my clients to just go back to your 5-year-old self, go back to the basics, and really just, did you eat? Did you, have you taken care of yourself? Did you exercise? Are you sleeping enough? Right. And then those are ways that we would show love to a child. Right. And so I think that's really important to really just dial it down and just see if the basics are covered. And then another thing that's really important to kind of talk about here is, what's the intention? Where is it coming from? Right? Because sometimes it could be coming from, if I'm working out too much, it could be coming from a place of, oh, I want to look a certain way, body image issues and all of that stuff, right? It has to come from a care, just like what Natasha was saying, from a place of, I want to take care of myself, instead of coming from a place of insecurity. I think that's really important to really distinguish between those two. Where is it coming from?
Yeah. I think another thing that we could add to that is being able to have boundaries and to be able to reinforce them. All right. And not only with other people, like boundaries within yourself. I know, I think one thing that you said, Natasha, when you were talking about people who are starting businesses, and as therapists, especially during COVID, right now, it's crazy. Like you're like, when do I stop? When do I sleep? When do I eat? Because it's a nonstop. But being able to set those boundaries is like not only self-care, it is loving yourself. Like, hey, I love myself enough to know, hey, this is a breaking point for me, and I have to stop here. And so I've been also doing that, implementing that during these times, because I have to say that I fell into that trap of just go, do, especially during this time. And I started to find myself burning out. So now I set hard deadlines. Like after a certain time, it's like cut off. Even if I feel like I'm up and I can keep going, I'm like, nope. No. You're just going to sit here and binge Netflix, okay? And we're going to find another show besides Bridgerton, and we're going to find something else.
And that's so hard. That's hard to do, to really just enforce those boundaries.
Yeah.
I found myself this year, as I'm telling my clients to do and giving suggestions, it's like I'm reminding myself, hey, you need to listen to what you're telling everybody else to do, because sometimes I do forget. And but yeah, it's hard. But even though we want to help others and we always want to be there and we want to, be available to other people in their time of need, we also need to care for ourselves and kind of kick in that self-love consistently. So
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add, especially for people who are in the helping field, right? Just therapists, and not even just as a profession, even just as a family member, like the roles. Are you a mom? Are you a caregiver that's helping a family member? Are you a friend that someone's really relying on? All of those things have to really emphasize the boundaries that you bring up, Amber, and really just enforcing them.
Yeah. And I'm glad that both of you brought that up, because I think that's another one. We do Ask a Therapist Thursday, and I see that question a lot, like feeling like caring for themselves is selfish when I'm a wife, or I have a spouse, I have children, I have a mom that I should go check up. I have these things that I need to do. And they ask, like, is that selfish? Like, what are we telling our clients that feel like it's selfish to kind of care for themselves?
So what I like to say is, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, number one. So you definitely have to re-energize and be able to give them the best, even if it's, taking a mental health day at work. I have a lot of clients that struggle with that. And you can't really give your best at work if you are on zero. And also, it's a way to show your kids how to love yourself. So self-love and being an example of, oh, well, my mom doesn't work 10 to 12 hours a day and gets 4 hours of sleep. She likes to rest, and, she's not rushing, and she takes time, and she's able to do things with us. So setting boundaries is not selfish. It's like you're showing them how to treat themselves as well.
Yeah, I agree. Oftentimes we forget that our behaviors are being watched by other people, especially, like an example you given as a parent or even as a manager or any of those roles when people are looking up to you. It's like you have to live what you preach and what you say, and it does have a domino effect on other people that are around. You don't even know that they're watching, but they are.
Absolutely. What are some ways people can practice self-love? Or what are some things that you guys are doing or that you do to practice like self-love?
My big thing is boundaries. Protecting my energy. Wherever I feel like something's coming at, far left, I definitely make sure to protect my boundaries. And I have different, self-care activities that I do every day that makes me happy. Making sure I'm taking care of my health. So whether that's going to the doctor's appointment, being mindful of what's going on there, taking vitamins and eating well, drinking water, like the basics, like we talked about before, making sure I'm caring for myself, and resting. I definitely make sure I get enough sleep. So yeah, that's what I'm doing currently.
Yeah. Literally copy paste everything you're doing. Exactly. Yes. And at the same time, I live through this philosophy of after me, you come first. So I always try and remind myself of that whenever I have a tendency, and I think most therapists feel this way, to put other people first, or, I can hold much more than you can, so I'm going to take care of this more. But if I keep that mantra in mind, it does help me really ask myself, like, what do I want here? And what I want also changes depending on what my mood is. Did I have a hard day? Did I have a good day? Right? It depends on like what's going on around me. So really just checking in with myself first is the basics of my self-love. And then, going and following through with what is it that I really need.
Mm.
I like that you said that too, because like I think it's important to check in with yourself frequently, like multiple times throughout the day, because things happen. So you may be fine in the morning, but then by the afternoon it's something else, and then the evening could be something else. So like different times of the day, what do you need to do to kind of, like you said, fill your cup, honestly, and kind of care for yourself? A lot of people who follow us love journal prompts and like love journaling, right? So we do those questions. So I think that's another good one that I've kind of started doing, is when we were talking about the different questions to pose, like I'm also writing those things, because it gives me kind of some awareness, like everybody, of like, oh wow, I kind of didn't even know that I was feeling that way, because you're so much in autopilot of how the day goes, you don't even really sit and take the time to just be like, okay, what do I need today? What do I need to fill up my cup? And even though it sounds so simple, it's super, super important for us to have. Kind of shifting it a little bit, not really, but kind of a little bit. It made me think, like, while you guys was talking, I was thinking about self-love, and with, like I said, February being the month of love, some people are single during these times. How can they, or what if someone is dealing with being single? How can they still practice self-love and not feel less than because you don't have a partner? Because you see it on social media, people glorify your partners, and I love relationships. That's awesome. But if you're not in a relationship, it doesn't make you less than. What are we telling our people who are maybe struggling during this time? Because Valentine's Day is coming up, and you're probably going to see all this stuff on social media, roses trailing down the driveway. You're like, wah, wah, What are we telling our people who are kind of dealing with that? With being single during this time, I guess.
Yeah, I think this time is just so unique. I think everything kind of, depending on where everyone's at, everything kind of shut down after the Valentine's Day last year. So this is really like the first blown, like full blown Valentine's Day during everything really being so, the stay-at-home orders are more enforced than ever. But I think that people have to get creative. And the first and foremost thing that is really important is really just to practice that self-compassion, right? And that goes with the self-love of, it is a harder time right now. We are more glued to our phones more than ever. That is now becoming our form of entertainment. We have less distractions and less resources to kind of put our minds into something else or anything else rather than what we're worried about. But what I would really recommend, and also what I tell my clients, is to really not to isolate. Hang out with your girlfriends or in a safe way, do a Zoom call, all the things that we've been doing during the pandemic. But I always say that, isolation breeds depression. And so when we are in a space of really feeling that loneliness, open up to people that you trust. Not everybody, because not everybody deserves you opening up, but really just picking and choosing who are the people that I can trust and really share that this is what I'm experiencing and that it's okay for me to feel this way, right? It is a hard time. It's hard because it's hard. So kind of really reminding ourselves of that whenever we get into those moods or those phases.
Yeah. And I would agree, like, you definitely don't want to isolate during that time, hang out with friends, staying connected. But in general, for those that are single, just being able to wrap your head around the idea that being single is not bad. You haven't failed at life because you don't have a partner and you're not married, or, whatever the case may be. Like, being single is whatever you make of it. So it could be, for a lot of people, it's like the best time, ever. They get to go anywhere. They don't have all these responsibilities. So it really is just what you make of it. And if you see it as, a bad thing, it's going to be that way. But if it's, a freeing time, a time to explore, a time to get to know yourself, then you will begin to see it in a better light, and it won't feel like a bad situation.
I like you just said, get to know yourself. How can people work on getting to know themselves? I feel like I hear that question a lot. Like, they always say get to know yourself, but how? Like, I already know what food I like. I already know what shows I like.
Oh, yeah. So getting to know yourself is like really, it could be, looking at your past. So maybe doing a little bit of the shadow work that a lot of people like to avoid until it's like in your face. So maybe, getting therapy and just processing some things you've kind of put on a shelf. Because a lot of times when you're in relationships or you're doing things and you're always busy, you really aren't taking time to sit down and really feel and hear what your body or your mind is saying to you, and the things that may be creeping up from your past. So if you keep yourself busy and you're always in relationships, you're tuning out all that stuff that you should be addressing. And so when you're single, that is the time to explore and really just sit in your stuff. So, yeah.
That's so true. And it's oftentimes too, I think with our clients, they don't realize all these things, because we all have blind spots, and I know that I'm biased about therapy, but it really does provide you with some insight that you never ever would have thought about unless somebody was really sitting across from you talking about reflecting back, all of those experiences, thoughts, emotions, all of that. So I like that concept of really just sit with yourself, not focus on what's the next thing on your to-do list, but just be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have a hard time with that, to just be.
Absolutely.
Like, what I'm supposed to do with my hands? Like, I don't have anything to do. What I'm supposed to do? Like, down.
Yes, I'm guilty of that. I do that sometimes. It's hard.
It is. And it takes practice. Talking about self-love, if this is something that you're not used to doing, it is definitely going to have to be something that you might have to even have your phone, like, do an alert to just say, hey, take a break. And just check yourself, until you start getting used to it. Like, okay, this is now my routine. And now it's the norm. It's second nature for me to check in with myself.
Right.
Like you said, it's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, I like that reminder too, because if you think about it, it's the same thing with every other skill that we learn, right? Like, for example, cooking a new dish or lifting weights at the gym, right? We start with something small and we have to go back and look at the directions and what's the measurements and all of these things until, when you've done it 5, 6, 7, or however many times, it becomes secondary like that. I think it's the same with self-love, and people should just I think we should all practice a little bit more self-compassion. Like, it's okay if I mess up the first couple of times around this, or I find myself organizing the junk drawer 3 times. Like, it's okay. We're still all learning. So I love that reminders and using the things around us to help support this self-love, this concept of self-love.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this is really good. Okay, so what do you think a reason is, or maybe an issue that people may have with not practicing self-love, or what's holding them back from practicing self-love?
From what I've seen, one of the major things is lack of time, or thinking that they don't have time to have self-care. But a lot of times when my clients are like, oh, I didn't get to do that this week, or I didn't get to do that last week, then I really just say, you are leaving yourself out. Like, you're doing all of these things for everybody else, and you're not leaving anything left for you. And when you kind of phrase it like that, they're like, why am I not caring for myself? So they find time to carve out, whether they structure their hours at work, or get help with the other responsibilities. They find time in their schedule to have self-care or self-love activities. So that's what I've seen, and a lot of it is guilt or poor self-esteem. So not even feeling worthy of the self-love, which is it's a difficult place to be in, but just acknowledging that you're struggling with even wanting to do those things for yourself.
Yeah.
What if you don't even know that that's kind of what you're dealing with? Because some people, that's almost like a self-reflection question. Like,
right,
I am doing that, and I didn't even know that I am doing that. And once you kind of dig into it, it might get to guilt, like you said, that I'm guilty that I do have all these other things going on, and I don't feel worthy to take time for myself. What are we telling or how can somebody even get to that, to realize that's what they're going through? Do they need to sit down and ask themselves that question, or how do they process that?
So journaling helps. Journaling helps. So even if you aren't in therapy, if you're journaling your day, you might see a pattern of, okay, I did all of these things. I don't see any fun things or anything, any of the things that I enjoy. You might be able to notice some patterns that stick out to you, that you feel like, okay, this doesn't look right. Like, something about what I'm writing every single day is like, this isn't life. Like, this isn't the way it should be. As far as like digging deeper, you may not get that on your own, but I think journaling and just being aware of your thoughts is helpful.
Yeah, I want to add to that. Also, maybe looking at your support system. Who do you trust, and asking for feedback? I know it's such a vulnerable thing to do, but someone that you really trust, who has your best interest at heart, and really say, hey, what do you like? How do you notice that I plan out fun things, or do you recognize that I'm always so busy? Would you consider me such a busy person? And all of those things. So just to get feedback, but obviously take it with, find filter through what applies to you and what feels true to you. But also sometimes those are the people that know us best. And so it's good to kind of just get that. We don't have to do this all on our own. We don't have to figure it out all on our own. We have a support system from everybody else.
Absolutely. And like you said, not to be biased, but I am a therapist. It's always a great start. You can also join support groups, even if you don't feel like you're comfortable going to your family. or friends, and you don't want to be that vulnerable with them. It's always someone else that's out there that can support you during this time. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining me. Again, before we go, let people know who you are, how they can find you, and yeah, your social medias or something like that. Like a mic or something.
Again, I'm Camille. I'm a therapist here in the Los Angeles area. I could be found at Camille, CAMILLE, at diversifiedtherapyla.com.
And I'm Dr. Natasha Goodman. I am a psychotherapist based in Georgia, and I can best be found on Instagram at natasha.e.goodman.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, both for joining me.
Thank you.
Bye.